Hello and welcome to KnightHunter Books. It's a relatively short wrap up this month, as whilst we've been doing lots of story based things, that's mostly been watching Jane the Virgin, playing Mass Effect or Skyrim. So if you'd like to hear us talk about those, let us know in the comments. In the meantime, we'll be talking about the few and far between books that we managed to read this month. So, without further ado.
The first book I read this month was Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami, which I picked up because we briefly joined a book club in town.
And they were planning to read it.
Yeah. We didn't actually make it to the discussion of this book, which means that it's slightly more pointless me having read it, especially seeing as I didn't really enjoy it that much. This is translated work from the Japanese, and at its core is a love story. I really liked the writing style of this, and I did find the book very atmospheric. I definitely felt like it was very connected to where it was set, and there were all sorts of kind of interesting bits and pieces that I learned about Tokyo and the Japanese culture. However, beyond that, I didn't really find it very compelling. Considering how short it was, it took me quite a while to read, which is never a good sign. And I think a lot of this is just because I didn't really believe the love story. It's between a kind of younger woman and a man who used to be her teacher. There's about a 30-year age gap. And yeah, I just wasn't sold on that. And also the characters were not very fleshed out. I did comment while reading this that this could in fact be a very clever, very good book. So I felt very detached from what was going on, but actually the main character was feeling very detached from what's going on. So this could all be intentional, but the end result was it didn't really grab me. I rated this 3 stars.
My first book is An Artificial Night by McGuire, and this is the third in the Toby Days series, which I appreciate I said I was going to buy. Then I saw it at the library next time I went, and I accidentally picked it up. This series continues to be very fast-paced, very enjoyable, good fun. If you like Jim Butcher's Dresden series, then you'll probably like this. I think interesting points of contrast. The protagonist is more closely tied to sort of different types of people. She's part of a support network that she draws on. She starts out the very first book as thinking she's some sort of lone wolf, and her friends quickly disabuse her of that idea. So it's an urban fantasy series. The protagonist is a knight of a fairy court, the only changeling to have been made a knight for a very long time, and she acts in the mortal world for them as an investigator. In this case, it's very much a supernatural threat. Blind Michael and the Wild Hunt have taken children, including children of her close friends, and she has to find them.
The next book I read, again, another one we picked up from the library, is a book that I've been meaning to read for a long time. Came out quite a few years ago. Matthew Quick's Silver Linings Playbook. There was a successful film based on it, and I saw the film a few years ago and really loved it. And based on that, I wanted to pick up the book. I think this is one of those rare cases where I actually prefer the film. This follows Pat Peoples, who's just been released from a mental health institution, and he's got significant kind of memory loss. He's not very connected to what's been going on recently. So at the core of this book is a mystery of him trying to work out what's gone on. He's trying to get reconnected with his wife, but he's been banned from seeing her. So already there's a question mark about what's going on there. I did really enjoy the mystery, and I found it quite a good book to read generally, but there's a kind of a main female character that he does get to see called Tiffany, who in the film is played by Jennifer Lawrence and is a very strong character. In this, she takes a bit more of a back seat.
And is older than the protagonist rather than younger.
Older is interesting, yeah. So overall, I think this is probably quite a good contemporary book. A lot of the plot revolves around baseball, which is probably one of the reasons I wasn't able to rate it higher. Rated it 3.5 stars, so kind of pretty good. I might pick up another one of his books if there's a plot which particularly grabs me, but I'm not going to run out and do that.
My final book this month, terrifyingly, is Infamocracy by Malka Older. I won't talk about this too much here because I've already filmed a review, which I'll link below. It's a relatively near-future science fiction novel, which is a political thriller, which is not something I've run into recently. I think it represents quite an optimistic view of the future, and also the peril in the book is not dealt with via firepower, but by sort of data analysis and trust and cooperation. So I think those two elements on their own make it noteworthy.
The last book I read this month is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, which I've been looking forward to picking up for a while. This is actually a book I also bought this month, but the only book, so we haven't done a separate haul. I'd say this is quite typical for a John Green book, definitely contemporary with an element of romance,
Nerdy characters.
Teenagers, nerdy characters, YA. I really liked this. I think it's kind of up there with Fault in Our Stars, kind of one of his better books. But if you don't like John Green, I'd say you probably still wouldn't like this. This is still very much John Green. Teenage characters having philosophical conversations and maybe acting slightly older than their age might suggest, which I know is a bugbear of some people. But I find those conversations interesting. The thing that makes this stand out is that the main character is really struggling with mental illness, with OCD, which is something which John Green has personal experience of, and I think that really comes through. It's really written very well. And the way he describes being trapped by the kind of thought spirals is very powerful and believable. I think this is a really good way for someone who doesn't know much about OCD to actually get an idea of what it's like to live with. So that's why I think it's one of his better books. I'd say the plot was less strong, although I did really like the ending. It was quite realistic. So yeah, I rated this 4.25 stars, and I will be continuing to read John Green's books whenever he releases them.
And there probably won't be a lot from us next month either, as we're about to go on holiday for 3 weeks.
Yeah, there won't be very many videos, however we're hoping to read a lot of books, have a bigger wrap up when we get back. So yeah, if we're gone, we're not dead. Hopefully.
And if you don't see us before, we'll see you then.